Good evening and welcome once again to another episode of the TryPod NRL betting podcast. And this week we preview round 10.
Lego!
Lego! Big week coming up.
Yep, I hope we've got the eye of the tiger looking towards our picks this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be an absolutely huge pod today. We're going to be introducing a brand new competition that we've started on our Facebook page tonight. Keep your eye out for that. What's the name of that one?
That's Put Your Tip Where Your Mouth Is. And yeah, there's been a lot of buzz about this one. There's been, a few keyboard warriors getting involved.
Yep.
A bit of a war of words amongst a few of the famous characters in our team. And we said, let's settle this with our bets.
Yep.
So those two have got a couple of guys clashing head to head. We'll talk a bit more about that later in the pod, explain the rules.
Yeah,
it's exciting and it's something that everyone can get involved in.
Yep.
Trying to get more people to, show us what their best bets are. This is off the back of a great winning bet in the Premier League that Ev Sanity shot through to us.
He's on a roll and he's trying to continue that one on into Put Your Tip Where Your Mouth Is.
That's right. And it doesn't matter if it's the NRL Grand Final or if it's curling, you walk to the betting window and you cash the same money, same currency, guys. So anytime you can give us a winner, we're happy to have it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, looking forward to that one. It's going to be exciting. We'll talk about that a little later in the pod.
Yeah, definitely. And it's been a couple of weeks since our last pod. So, why don't we jump into our takeaways? We've probably got a few over the last couple of weeks. You want to take that away? Or?
Yeah, something I've got to admit, you have to always be fluid when you're making assessments of teams and handicapping, and something that a team I've been a bit critical of is the Storm. I just felt that they had a pretty soft schedule this year and that they're not a side that has a big and quality enough forward pack to really match it with the best sides on their day. But I am swinging around a little bit. It's just such a well-oiled machine, such a well-drilled side. They've got quality, they're smart, they execute, and the forward pack is playing at a higher level than I've probably given them credit for. One guy in particular, Jesse Bromwich, I'd have to say that guy's just about the form front rower in the comp, and he showed it in the Anzac Test where New Zealand, got the chocolates, as well as in their last few wins. That's a team that I said we're going to bet against, and I think we still will with Origin coming up, but I'm not taking them on when they're full strength. Yeah,
absolutely, and I totally agree. I want to talk about a bit about Dugan. Now, obviously, the Dragons, close loss over the weekend or on Monday night, but man, Dugan is an absolute monster in that game, and obviously he's got to be right up there on the list for Origin.
I think he's a shoo-in.
Every time he's getting the ball, the other team's got to be worried. He was making line breaks, breaking tackles, and he's just an absolute beast. And if he stays healthy, this Dragons team, I think, can continue to roll.
And every time he carves up, I still think back. It was only about 2 years ago when the Raiders let him go, and he had a verbal agreement with the Broncos. And I thought, this is a guy that can be at the Broncos for 10 years. We can win comps with this guy. And someone had a go at him on Twitter, and he told the bloke to neck himself. And
then the Broncos got up on their high horse.
Yes, the Broncos took the high ground and said, "Oh, you're not, good enough for our culture. That's all right. Let's not take, 22-year-old, transcendent superstar, because we need high character role models apparently." But he's gone to the Dragons and he's killing it there. You're right. He's one of the most dangerous players in the comp, and a guy who's also just about the best in the comp right now is Magic Johnson. He's just killing it. Let's go back to the Anzac Test. He led the Kiwis to an upset win there. He's just electrifying. The guy can make something out of nothing. There was no better example than the final play of the game against the Sharkies. He picked the ball up on the right-hand side, 30 out, beat about 7 for the win. And it's not like he can be taking people by surprise. They know what he's going to do, and they still can't stop him. You've got to be pretty brave taking the Warriors on when he's in that kind of form.
And you watch that play and you can just tell. You can tell he grew up playing touch footy. It was a prime time piece of touch footy play. The guys didn't get a hand on him, the Sharkies did. And he's an absolute monster. And I wanted to talk a bit about GI. Now, all right, I'm all well and good. I know the commentators over the weekend or on Monday night were saying, "Oh yeah, look how cool he is. Cool as a cucumber, chilling, waiting until the very last second in the in goal, and then just kicking it away." But let me tell you something. He needs to stop that absolute rot this second, or Queensland's going to be in a lot of trouble for Origin. I mean, he did it against New Zealand, where he sort of lackadaisically tried to, roll the ball over the dead ball line, and obviously that led to a try. And I know it's all well and good to say, oh yeah, he's just chilling, he knows where the offense is, but I'll tell you what, 1 millisecond later, and the Dragons would have been in for a try on both of those occasions. So someone's got to have a stern word to him.
And the question is he chilling or is he slowing down? That's my concern. And you spoke about Origin just then, and we want to, for our Betting 101, we're going to talk a little bit about looking ahead to future rounds. You can bet on future rounds on Ladbrokes. They offer odds on every single round this year. You can bet on Sportsbet. You can always bet 1 week ahead. And that is important this week because the Origin teams get named right at the end of round 10, and then no Origin players will be available in round 11. So, I mean, looking forward to the Origin series, there's certain guys are going to get picked for certain.
Yep.
Inglis is one of them, and we're both, diehard Queensland fans. We've got to be concerned. He's not the same superstar, game-changing, game-breaking back that he was a couple years ago. That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if teams are sort of catching on to it, and I know that I listened to Benji Marshall the other day, and he was saying, look, they're just trying to, every time they kick it to him, they're really locking him down, and I don't know, I do agree, though, that he doesn't look 100%, and I don't know if it's just still a niggling injury, or if he's just, he is getting older every day.
You can see that his knee's taped up, and I can actually pinpoint it back to when he hurt his knee about 2 years ago. Since then, we saw him, take an intercept and get run down by Mitchell Pearce in a big Roosters-Bunnies clash. And his speed isn't there. His strength still is, and he's still unbelievably strong. He's still good under the high ball. He's still a hell of a player, but he doesn't have that almost Olympic speed that he used to have.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a problem. But as we look forward, this weekend especially, you've got some guys that know for sure they're going to get picked for Origin, Is their head completely in the game, or are they kind of looking out for their own well-being? And you've got other guys who are on the fringe of Origin who are going to be going balls to the wall 110%. You kind of have to factor that into your handicapping as we look at round 10.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, the thing with those look-ahead lines is they don't adjust them overly much. And the reason being is because not many people are betting on them. So you can often find a bit of value there. And we'll talk about one of these, a game that we think we found value in for next week's round a little later on in the show. But yeah, that's certainly one thing to look out at. And I know, as soon as that Origin side is named, you've got to be there, because the odds are going to change almost instantly depending on who's in and who's out. So if you can get ahead of that, there might be a little 20-minute window where you can, make a bit of money off that. So you've got to keep your eyes peeled.
And not only that, but you will sometimes, whispers will come through, information that there's been information through that Reynolds and Hodgkinson are going to be picked as the New South Wales halves again. That's just an example. That's not info that we've got. If that's the case, that massively changes what you've got your perspective on the Bulldogs next week, as opposed to, I'm hearing that Mitchell Pearce is almost certain, and, there could be other guys joining Mitchell Pearce in the halves, maybe an Adam Reynolds type player. They might need someone who can kick goals. Then you got to look to maybe go against the Roosters, and you want to play on the Dogs. They're going to have a couple of halves that really want to prove a point. So you've got to just be listening out for that kind of information this weekend. You can definitely make some money.
Yeah, absolutely. Should we jump into the round?
Let's do it.
Yep. So first up, we've got the Bulldogs hosting the Roosters. The Doggies you can find plus 4.5 to plus 5.5, and the total game score sitting at 37.5 to 40.
And I know you've actually got a strong feeling on this game because you text me about it a few times. So why don't I let you open the floor, mate?
This is going to go to the Grindhouse Friday night. Roosters, Bulldogs, showdown. These teams, this is all about defense. The Roosters have a beastly defense. I know they're sitting at 8th on the ladder, but they have a 69-point point differential in their favour. And the Bulldogs love getting into the battle. And this is going to be an absolute cracker of a match. I know the Doggies get some players back. The Roosters, they're finding their feet now as well after a big win last week. But this is all about the defense. I cannot see this game going over 40 points, and I would happily play the under 40.
Yeah, and you're right. Like, I look at this game and I can't really favour a side. I can understand why the Roosters are the favourites because they've really started to roll, getting some of their star players back, getting Guerra back into the team, Warrior Hargraves recently, Orbison. They're coming together. But let's not forget that this week James Graham's back. and so is Josh Reynolds, both back from suspension for the Doggies. So why am I cautious about the total? I suppose you've got some really quality backline players. You're telling me I've got to bet on an under in a game that's got Josh Morris, Josh Reynolds, Hodgkinson that kicks goals from everywhere, Pearce trying to get an Origin jersey, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. But having said all that, I do agree with you. Correct me if I'm wrong, this was your grand final prediction.
This was.
For this season. And, I don't see too much wrong with that. I think it's going to be an Origin-style game, especially with 4 of the halves in this game want to prove themselves for Origin. They're going to want to play mistake-free because that's what Origin footy is. It's all about the grind and all about an arm wrestle. So I think this is a really good Origin preview on a Friday night. You've also still got the Dogs missing a couple of star backline players like Brett Morris and Laffey. 40 does seem a bit high for me. I don't love playing totals when they're at 40 or lower, but yeah, you're right. I don't see both teams getting into the 20s for sure. I think it's a good bet. I'm happy to go with you and play under 40.
Let's do that. Let's hope this game takes it to the grindhouse and we'll go under 40 for the total game score in the Friday night clash. Now, next up, we got the Cowboys hosting the Broncos. Line sitting at 3.5. The total game score sitting at 41.5 to 42.5.
And I'm still not sure that the Broncos are great, but I know we're good. We just seem to find a way to win. They're another team that takes it to the grindhouse every week, and it's another team that we have cash bets betting under.
Yeah.
Because they're kind of a no-frills football team, but what they will do is turn up every week and just and that's going to give them a chance in this game too. Now, North Queensland, that's certainly a pretty good team. You never really want to go against them in Townsville. But they got lucky last week. They were down 16-12 to the Dogs, and that was an undermanned Dogs side. I don't love North Queensland without the big man Tamalolo. Like, that guy is one of my favourite players, an absolute game changer, and he obviously hurt his knee a couple of weeks ago. North Queensland's got quite a few players that probably know they're going to get picked for Origin. I just wonder how that factors in to the mindset. It shouldn't, though. They've said this is going to be one of the biggest home games in recent memory for North Queensland, so it's a huge derby game. But the odds are probably about right. North Queensland laying a few points for the home field advantage, but other than that, pretty evenly matched sides. I'm going to stay away from this game.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think they're fairly evenly matched sides, and I think North Queensland is deservedly favourites. But look, I can't trust Brisbane either. Look, in a close game, I know it's nice getting a few points, but you can never go against Thurston in a tight game like that. Rivalry game, it's going to be close. It's probably going to be low scoring. But then again, if the Cowboys get down early, we've seen what can happen when Thurston turns it on. So I agree. I think the line's right about where it should be, and I'm happy to pass that one. Next up, we got the Eels hosting New Zealand. And the line, this is essentially a pick'em game. I think you can find +1 with New Zealand in some places. And the total, a high 42.5 to 43.5.
Yeah, +1 or 1.5 with Parramatta. It is actually. They're slight home underdogs in this one. This is a game that I think you and I slightly disagree on. And I wanted to kind of make a point in general for the pod. I really don't expect that everyone listening to the pod just blindly goes out and plays our best bets. But from my own experience, if I listen to professional bettors in any sport, I just like to take their opinion on board. And if you already like a side and then we say we think it's a best bet, probably gives you a bit more confidence. Maybe you put a little bit more on it than you would have. Maybe it gets you over the line. If you hear us take a best bet against the side you like, maybe we're not saying we're going to change your mind and we're right and you should bet what we say, but maybe it keeps you off the game. There's nothing wrong with leaving a game alone.
Definitely.
I think we've definitely proven over a large sample size we're going to pick more winners than losers. So if you're taking bets that we disagree with on a regular basis, you're probably not going to turn a profit.
Yep.
Something to keep in mind. And I liked Parramatta in this game. I liked them just because they got Radradra back. I think they're still a slightly underrated side. There's some good outside backs. It's a young back line. They're at home. And I just want to go against New Zealand before they get Tompkins back, because I think once he's back, they can really roll. But when you told me you kind of preferred the Warriors in this, then that put me on a stay away.
Yeah, I'm happy to stay away as well. I respect your judgment. But New Zealand are rolling. Obviously, we've talked about the close win theory. I guess in previous pods. And New Zealand came away and they scraped away with that game, obviously, with the brilliance of Sean Johnson. And we've said that often, when a team has a close win like that where they felt like they shouldn't, they really sort of get on a roll and often win the next game. Parramatta, I feel like, are in disarray. Obviously, Chrissy Sandow's out along with 2 other players. And Kelly, I think, into halfback. This team is, a team in disarray. I do not want to play on them at the moment. Look, sometimes I'll give it to you that sometimes, when I guess a team has a lot of off-field dramas going on, they sometimes lift for the coach and play well, but, just as often than not, they just fold. So I do favour New Zealand in this spot, but I'm happy to stay away. Just because you like Parramatta so much. So I'm happy to leave that one, and we've got enough best bets for you guys anyway this week, so we'll move on. Speaking of, the Titans hosting Cronulla. Now this line's sitting at Gold Coast laying 2.5 to 4 points, and the over-under sitting at 39.5 to 42.
Yeah, and listen carefully here. This is a historic moment for the pod. We're about to do something we've never done before.
We're crazy.
Yeah, this is nuts, but we're going to have 3 best bets on one game right now. That's more best bets than we've had in some rounds.
True.
Okay, and let me tell you why. Round. This is a rematch. These 2 teams played each other about 6 weeks ago, and we were on the game there just for the under. Felt that they were 2 really offensively challenged sides coming together. At that stage, neither had won a game. Now, that's about 6 weeks ago. Since then, these teams have 7 wins between them. You wouldn't have necessarily thought it, but they are both sides that can grind it out. Now, the Gold Coast obviously got stumped last week, missing Greg Bird. I don't think that that's just a coincidence. I think it does hurt them missing Greg Bird. I think it's kind of a talent-deprived side. It's a side that can grind, but not necessarily a side that can blow teams away. They haven't won at home this year yet, and they are at home here. I think they've got to lift. They've got to give the fans something back. Give them something back. Now, Cronulla, rattled off a couple of really impressive performances. They've got to be hurting a bit from that Warriors loss. Still missing Paul Gallen. Lost Anthony Tupou in a shocking injury.
Oh, my Lanta.
You see that? I mean,
yes.
Oh my God, like a sledgehammer to the, and of all places.
Not just any knee. Conrad Hurrell's knee.
I felt like he didn't even lift it.
Big as my body.
Yeah, and that's saying something. We spoke about that last week. But Cronulla for me is just a more class side. There's still some really quality players in the forward pack rather for Cronulla. It's probably the deepest forward pack in the comp. Now they're catching 4 points here, and what we've just said is going to be an arm wrestle. In fact, I'll go as far to say that I believe Cronulla will win. So +4 is a best bet as far as I'm concerned. For the total, again, I think it's a grindhouse type of game. It's 13th versus 14th. If you want to make the 8, if you're serious about making the 8, you've got to be winning games like this. And Gold Coast conceded, 56 points down in Canberra last week. I think they're going to be D'ing up like crazy. I know we got burned on the over last time these two met, but that's another thing. I remember that game well.
Yes.
There's an intercept try thrown by the team that was up. There were tries off kicks. There were tries off strip balls that sprayed out. There were ridiculous tries. There were 8 penalty goals taken. Teams couldn't miss. Should never have gone over. It was an under game. We got burned. We're going to have a second bite at the cherry. So we want to play under the 42 is the highest line you can find. That's what you want to play under. And as I've said, I think Cronulla's going to win the game. I think it's going to be low scoring. Because Gold Coast are the favourites, their team total's 22.5. That's too high. I don't see Gold Coast getting to 23 or 24 points or above, certainly. So that's why we've got 3 best bets, because we want to go Gold Coast under 22.5.
Yep. Gold Coast under 22.5, Sharks plus the 4 points, and the total to go under the 42, and I agree with you on all points. That'll wrap up the first 4 games of the round, and I guess before any further ado, we'll have a word from our sponsor.
This episode of the TryPod NRL Betting Podcast is proudly brought to you by F-Sanity, the Performance Athletic Association. Check out our new sporting apparel on Instagram today.
Speaking of F-Sanity, it's a big week. It's a big week.
Heavyweight clash, and we spoke about Maypac,
Yep.
obviously, last week. it didn't live up to expectations. I think that's fair to say. You know, people were calling it the clash of the century. It wasn't. This is the clash of the century.
This is the clash of the century.
This is the battle that people want to see.
Yep, absolutely. Put your tip where your mouth is.
Now, if you've been following the pod, you'd be well aware of Mick's Picks. Gives out an unsuccessful multi every single week.
Yeah.
Now, when you are...
It's a fan favourite, though. The fans love him.
And I've said before, it's
love
got a
him
cult
more than they
following.
love us.
Sometimes I worry about that. And when you are putting yourself out there and putting your own personal opinion into the public domain, you leave yourself open to criticism, and you've got to be able to wear that. And sometimes it feels a bit unfair because, you know, we're open to criticism, but the people, these keyboard warriors, can, you know, have a go at you.
Yep.
And it gets a bit frustrating. And I think Mick felt that way and felt that he wanted to, you know, fight back a little bit. And he was, you know, maybe at odds slightly with our producer, Ev Sanity. They've got a couple of differences in opinion, but they're both valued members of our team. Ev Sanity, hot off his...
Big tip.
Yeah, big win in the Premier League where he explained to us a situational play with Liverpool going against a far stronger Chelsea side on paper, but we took them, cashed easily there. He's brimming with confidence and maybe running his mouth a little bit too far. That's yet to be seen. So we thought, well, let's settle this, you know, at the betting window.
Yeah, absolutely. So this week we're going to have Ev Sanity going up against Michael Mixed Picks Dwan. And just a quick rundown, what we've made it is you basically pick three of your best bets for that weekend, or I guess until the next week. And they can be any sport, any odds, wherever you want to go. You can do darts, you can go soccer, you can go the horses, whatever you like. And basically you have those three bets. Essentially, we just go in. Every bet is worth, or you put $1 on every bet, I guess. And then whoever walks away with the most money at the end of the three bets is declared the champion.
Yeah, that's right. So should be exciting. You know, it's tactical too. Do you take the safer players more likely to win? But then if the other guy can cash one underdog, you know, out of three, then you're toast.
Yep.
And, you know, you don't get second chances in this. The winner of this week will be the people's champion. And then that's where we open it up to the listeners. Yep. And, you know, if you're out there, 3 plays, anything your specialty, you know, whether it's sport, politics, you know, religion, whatever. If you can bet on it, you can play it. And we'll be taking challenges every week, so please get involved.
Yep, that's right. And so the way it's going to work is, basically the winner of this one, the inaugural one, Mick versus Ev Sanity, they'll go on to next week's challenge where they'll face 2 new challenges. So obviously, if you can survive a few rounds, you're doing awfully well. Yeah,
that's right. So it's kind of a boxing-style championship belt that the winner from each week will hold, and we'll see, you know, who can come out on top.
There's a lot of people that are out there saying, oh, you know, I bet this, I won this over the weekend, but once you put your bets out in the public, it's a little bit of a different story. The pressure gets to them, you know. So it's going to be good to see what happens here. We've decided that if none of the 3 bets win on either side, if no bet comes off, then the person with the higher odds total will be declared the champion.
Yeah, so there's a slight reward for going a little bit more ballsy, and I know there's a few listeners out there, you know, such as the Bareback Bandit, who have always said they wanted to be able to put their tip where their mouth was.
Yep.
So here's your chance.
Yep.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Lego!
Lego!
Should be exciting. Look forward to it. Get involved.
It's going to be a great weekend. And actually, the bets are up, posted on Facebook now, so get on there, see what you think. Have a comment, because one of the first legs on Evan's post, I think, is going to be happening early this morning.
Yeah, in fact,
early tomorrow morning.
I'll read them out super quick for you, so you're right. So Evan's taking Juventus, the Italian football team, to win over the European champions Real Madrid tomorrow morning. That's at $5 odds. He feels there's value with the Italians there. He's also taking the Golden State Warriors to win at home against Memphis Grizzlies. That's also tomorrow.
Game's at 12 o'clock
check that
tomorrow.
one out if you're interested in that one. And they're almost unbackable favourites. They're 10-point favourites, but he's taken them straight up at $1.17 there. So he'd probably be banking
Safe
on
play.
that one. And then he reckons that Stoke are a hot tip in the Premier League this weekend. So sticking with soccer and basketball for this round, so a couple of sports that might be new to some
We
listeners.
love a hot tip.
Now, Dwani's gone a different route there. He's actually betting on his own beloved Cronulla Sharks. That's a side that he said to me, his very words were, do not bet on the Sharks this season. So if he's betting on them, he must know something. Must feel pretty confident about that. He's also betting on his beloved Porty boys, the Port Adelaide Power. And he's betting on them to bounce back. They were upset last week at home to West Coast. Now I believe they're on the road at Brisbane.
Yep.
$1.40 to lead at halftime and lead at full time. So they're also pretty short favourites, but he needs them to lead at both breaks, which is, never guaranteed in the AFL, but he'd be counting on that one. But the
roughie of the week.
Yeah, his roughie, his X Factor is probably number 10 at Morphettville Race 7 on Saturday. That's under the Louvre, and that's, I hope I've said that right. How would you have
Under
said
the
that?
Louvre.
Like in
France.
Okay, under the Louvre. Shows how cultured I am. And that's at $9. And I've done the quick maths here. If that one wins, it's all over. The others are irrelevant. So
When's that one?
That's on Saturday. So we won't know for sure what's going on with Evan's bet spread between tomorrow morning all the way through to Sunday. As Mike's bet's exciting. Check them out. These guys will be barracking hard against each other. There's been a lot of smack spoken. But now we're going to leave it all out on the field.
Yeah. It's going to be a good week. So let's jump back into the round. Next up,
I think actually there was a viewer question. We do
have
many.
viewer questions. We'll hit them now. So we've got one from Jacob from Toowong. Now he says, you guys are pretty mean to Alex about his weight loss last pod.
Yeah, now you might think that, Jacob. And at first I felt bad about it. I felt like we were kind of mean. We obviously went through a list of players that weigh the same or less than both are. He's tipping the scales at 107 kilos. And it's not, you shouldn't have a go at people about the way that they are. We don't encourage that at all. But it's different if it's something they can control. And I think we've all got to agree that you're just probably a little bit too heavy. And
105 now.
And there you go. And that's why I'm going to tell Jacob from Toowong that he's wrong to feel bad. Because it was only this weekend that you went out and bought a bike, mate.
Yep.
Yeah,
I did.
So what I want to say is public shaming has worked there. And I think what we'll do is maybe keep tabs on your weight as the season goes along, a bit of pressure on you.
Yeah.
Just to turn your life around, mate. You've got a good looking
Down
girlfriend.
in the dumps.
I don't ask me how. She's got a good body. Is it too much to ask for you to have a
Just a
BMI
regular.
less than clinically obese? That's all I'm saying.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Is it?
Yes. All right,
Well,
I've got
we'll
a
see.
question for you.
Oh no.
Now this is coming straight from me.
Okay.
It's about the NRL.
Yep.
Which team has scored the most points in the NRL so far?
I think you told me this like a week ago, and I can't even remember who you said because I didn't believe you.
Yeah, but things change week to week, mate.
Yeah, no, okay, I wouldn't have picked this at all. But is it Canberra Raiders?
Yes!
Yeah, I only know that because you told me. That's ridiculous.
211.
Yeah,
or
it doesn't,
209.
it doesn't make sense. And I mean,
It does make sense. They put 50 up on the board
yeah,
last week.
Yeah, and that's what kind of tipped me off. And I guess the reason you're asking me meant that it'd be something unusual. And that's something that you got to be aware of. People look at Canberra as not a very good team. People probably don't even know who's in that Canberra backline. But Blake Austin's actually doing well there.
Mm-hmm.
We've played Canberra under and we've got burned. That's a really
Yes.
good over team, and we'll be previewing Canberra's game coming up. But I still don't know what to make of that Canberra side. It's almost a bit like Brisbane in that they're not a contender in my eyes, but they do give 100% every week.
Yeah. You can save that till when we get to the Dragons Raiders
Will do.
game. But next up, we've got the Storm hosting a slightly depleted Rabbits side. Now the Storm laying 6.5 points, and the over/under sitting at 36.5 to 38.5.
And you got a couple of strong thoughts on this game too, so I'll let you kick this one off.
Yes, I like the under again. I like the under. This is going to be another arm wrestle game. Big rivalry here. Storm up against the Rabbits. Obviously, Storm missing Reynolds, who's an absolute deadeye. Maybe not so much last week, but look, he's good for 4 points a game. I know the total sitting low at 38.5, but it's low for a reason. Look, I guess the Storm side, obviously, Cooper Cronk's going to be in there for Origin, so he doesn't have too much to prove. But these are both sides good defensively, and this is going to be an absolute arm wrestle, just like the Dogs and the Roosters game. I'd love this game to go under the 38.5. What do you think?
I don't love it. And I explained earlier, Melbourne's just rolling too much for me, and I feel like it's such a smart team. They know they're going to get disrupted with Origin coming up. I think they've got the band together right now. Slater, Cronk, Chambers, Smith, all going to be playing Origin. They're at home here. I think they roll, and my problem is, like you said, it's just a bit too low of a total. Now, gun to my sack, I'm probably taking the under, but I don't really feel like it's a big advantage play when I wouldn't be surprised to see Melbourne get over the 24, 28, 30 points in this game. South Sydney's missing Reynolds. Keary hasn't really proven that he can lead this team on his own. They get back Sutton, but Glenn Stewart's still out. It's not a full-strength South Sydney, which is why I know you probably think 6.5 with South Sydney, the defending premiers, looks juicy, but they're still a bit hurting. And Inglis, as we said, isn't 100%. You just don't want to get out in front of this Melbourne team, and that's why I just can't go with you. I can't support that under.
Fair enough. We'll leave it alone. But I guess we can reassess next week and see whether this one went under or over.
Yeah, for sure.
Put some beer money on it ourselves. Anyway, next up, Dragons hosting the Raiders. Dragons laying 5.5 points, and the total sitting at 39.5 to 40.
We spoke about the Raiders earlier. How are they leading the comp in points? You could never bet that, but they're about to meet the immovable object.
Because they've scored over a quarter of their total points in one round.
Do you know who's actually leading the comp in points conceded, as in the least points conceded?
Yes.
Who?
It's the Dragons.
That's right. So this is the unstoppable.
You know what else they're
against
leading
the
the comp in?
What?
Least points.
Least points
Scored.
scored. So there you've got a stone cold overside against a stone cold underside. I think defense wins out in that kind of battle. I really believe in St George. They're full strength now. I didn't expect Dugan to come back last week. If I'd known he was back, would have probably taken St George, getting 7.5 or 8 points against the Bunnies. And as you said, he's in electric form. Tyson Frizzell, spoke about him right from the start of the season. Absolute beast. Would not be surprised at all if he gets picked for Origin. But he still hasn't cemented a spot, so he'll be playing big. Merrin's another guy that's going to make Origin. They've got good halves, playing well. Benji's playing well. It's a really good team at home. Now the Raiders, you don't know what you're going to get out of the Raiders, but I feel like in a true arm wrestle game where the other side keeps it tight, I don't know if the Raiders are good for 30 points this week. I really like St George. I think they're the better side and they're at home. Now, I know that I'm rarely going to lay anything, and I've spoken about that before.
True.
But I want to lay the 5.5 here.
I agree. And I think that by kickoff, this line is over 6. 6 or over.
Get in early.
So I say get in early. I like St George. They're rolling. Dugan's going to have one last good game before Origin. And the Raiders obviously coming off a phony big win over the Titans last week. People can't wait to jump back on the green machine. But I really like the Dragons here, possibly in a blowout. 5.5's a cheap line. We don't like laying a lot of points, but 5.5 less than a converted try. I'm happy to do that. So another best bet, Dragons minus 5.5. Next up, we got the Knights hosting the Tigers. We got the Knights at minus 2.5, and the total game score sitting at 41.5 to 42.5.
And obviously, we liked the Knights last week. Felt that they were full strength, that they really had a chance to start piling up some wins. The day after the pod, the news came out that Kieran Foran had been scratched, and the line dropped about 3 points across the board. It was sitting pretty because I'm a huge fan of Foran, so if I'm betting against Manly, I'm happy as Larry when he's not in there.
Yeah.
Felt so good about it. Mullen got scratched an hour before kickoff.
God.
I was worried. I still felt good about Newcastle, but no, then they weren't the same team without Mullen. He's such a good player. I always felt he was an Origin quality player, but they just never quite got the opportunity. I still think the Knights are really good, especially they got back Bo Scott. I think it's an underrated side. It's a side that we will make money on betting. Because if I look back at that game against Manly, I know they lost by 20. I know they played terribly, but I'm not sure if it was the wrong side. They dropped so much ball. They dropped tries early. They just I mean, of course, we take a team to go over 17.5 and they had 0 at half time.
Of course.
Could only happen to us. And when we bet on a team under, it's 30 all at half time.
Yes.
Feels...
You wouldn't have it any other way.
No,
but yes, I agree. We do like the Knights and they're a bet on side for us. But so are the Tigers. And they've got a couple of players with something to prove for Origin as well. I think Farah will be there. I think, Tedesco's obviously going to want to put in a good showing. Aaron Woods. So this is relatively a coin flip game for me, but I think the line's, right where it should be, sitting there at 2.5. So I'm going to have to pass this one. Next up, we got the Sea Eagles hosting the Panthers. The Sea Eagles 2.5 point favourites on the back of their big win last week, and the total game score sitting at 37.5 to 38.5.
Yeah, and I alluded to the fact that Newcastle probably aren't 20 points worse than Manly, and Manly aren't 20 points better than Newcastle. Saw the team list last night, and Foran is actually not only ruled out this week, but he's not expected back till round 13, so that hammy injury is a bit more serious than they first expected. Daly Cherry-Evans will be putting in a good performance for sure. They're still missing a couple of their front rowers in Starling, and I think it's Jesse Senna-Lefeo. One more name that eludes me now as well. So it's not quite a full-strength Manly. Whereas Penrith get back James Seguiaro. They raced and snuck back Jamie Soward into the team last week. Moylan didn't miss any game time with a hand injury. So this team is coming together as well. A solid team. They didn't score a try, and they still nearly won against the Broncos on the road.
Yep.
And I spoke to a couple of mates that are good Penrith fans, and they said they didn't even feel too bad about that result because they were so happy with the heart that their team showed. They get a nice big amount of time to recover from that game. This game's 9 days later. It's a really solid Penrith side. I think now as they're going to pick it up. To me, Penrith's just a fair bit better than Manly, and I can catch 2.5 points. I think Penrith wins this game, so I'm
I agree, and we're catching 2.5 points. Penrith, I think, obviously off that close loss to the Broncos, who can they kick a field goal? When it counts, they can't. But I think they're going to pull a bit of confidence from that, showing that their D can hold up. Manly, coming off a guff big win. You got Penrith off a loss, but yes, Matt Moylan's back in the side, and I know he's not 100%. He's still, obviously passing the ball off to the winger. Doesn't want to take a hit up, but he's still a great playmaker for them. I think my good friend Pete Evans said that he's had the most try assists of anyone this season. So great playmaker to have back in the side. Obviously, you got Soward steering the team around the park. I think Panthers win this game outright, and if I'm catching 2.5 points, I'm going to take that any day of the week. And that will wrap up the round.
As Heathy never does. A lot of best bets this week. How many was that?
Yeah, so
6?
we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, wait a second.
Have you included Dogs, Roosters, Unders? Yep, so 6 best bets.
Yep.
And, bonus best bet alert. I alluded to this earlier in the pod. We picked out a really good play for round 11. I've had a little look at the future rounds. Now, I know there's a few players that are definitely getting picked for Origin. Come next Monday, I know Jonathan Thurston, James Tarmow, Matt Scott. Their names are getting read out. There's a couple other guys that are maybes. Ethan Lowe, and then we've got James Tamalolo, who's injured as well for the Cowboys. Now, they've got to travel down to Campbelltown and play the Tigers. Now, I know Farah won't be there, and I know Aaron Woods probably won't be there, but still, I've still got some playmakers down there because I don't expect Tedesco to make Origin, and I know Luke Brooks is going to be not in Origin, but definitely wanting to prove a point. It's a really solid team. They've got a couple of Kiwi internationals in the forward pack as well, who are obviously still going to be there. You can't really expect the Cowboys to do much without the guys that I just named. Thurston alone is worth so much. Yeah. And if you look ahead on Ladbrokes, you can get Tigers -1.5.
That's great.
Now, I'm not saying that the Cowboys can't go down there and fire up and win without Thurston, but that line won't be 1.5 for kickoff. It's going to grow. It should be closer to a full converted try, if you ask me. So take the Tigers and take them now in round 11. That's a best bet for round 11. that we're telling you to take now because it's only going to go one way. And that's just an example of where you can make money when you know players are going to be out because of Origin.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned, that one's on Ladbrokes. And you've got to have multiple sites so you can shop around, because I don't have Ladbrokes anymore, and I won't tell you exactly why, but to cut a long story short, I was banned.
That's not the only site you've been banned off.
No, that's not the only site I've been banned off.
Winning too much.
Anyway, the Tigers, I think on Sportsbet are minus 2.5. So you certainly want minus 1.5 rather than that. So jump on that now before that line blows out all across the park. But anyway, we'll wrap up our best bets. So we got the Sharks plus 4 points. We got the Titans under 22.5 for the team total. We got the game total going under 42. That's all in the Sharks-Titans game. Then we've got St George laying 5.5 points, Panthers plus 2.5, and we got the Doggies and the Roosters to go under 40. And then obviously the best bet for next week, Tigers minus 1.5 against the Cowboys.
Yep, play our best bets, win money, and you too can get banned off multiple betting sites.
Yeah, great fun.
That'll do it, guys. Look out again. Mixed picks should be up, I presume, probably tonight or within the next 24 hours as well. He's still looking for that elusive win.
Absolutely.
But it's a huge week for him, as we already explained.
And let's cut him a little bit of slack, because I think this week's one, I think this week's one's going to be up around 80-1 odds. Now you can't be expecting these ones to come off every bloody week.
But can you expect them to come off 1 week?
1 in 80.
So, we'll see if he can get one this season. The quest for a win goes on for Mick. He's got a double important round as he takes on Ev Sanity, his rival.
Yep.
It's going to be a polarising battle. I know there's going to be a lot of supporters for both sides and a lot of haters and a lot of interest. So get involved and
definitely. And let us know if you want to get involved as well. Comment on the on the post that we have tonight, and because we'll be picking 2 brand new contenders next week to take on the champion. And it could be you. You always want to get your bets out there in the public, and this is your chance.
Maybe you can be famous like Mick if you get involved. This is how these things start. So that's going to be exciting. The NBA playoffs are still going on, and we're still giving out great advice there. Our series bets are looking good. One's
good.
All but one. Another one. The Rockets won today, which means that bet can't lose. Looking good.
There's going to be a couple that are getting decided tomorrow morning. So,
yep, absolutely.
Yeah, make sure you tune into those as well.
That's exciting. And 6 best bets. It's another big one today. I think we're 41 and 22 overall. So that's cashing at 65% on against the 50-50 line. You don't get free tips like that anywhere else. So get involved, guys. Most importantly, please.
Oh, please.
Gamble responsibly.